And I see the same thing with people with their relationships with food. When they're really struggling with a disordered relationship with food, is they'll go over here, they'll see a nutritionist over here, and then they'll try to water fast, and then they'll try to just stop emotionally eating, and then they might go to therapy over here. And they're kind of being pulled in all these different directions because they don't fundamentally understand what it is that they are trying to do. I appreciate that if you found yourself here, then you have likely been struggling, maybe for some time, with binge eating or emotional eating or yo-yo dieting or food obsession, insecurity around your body image concerns, maybe even all of the above. And if you think that you have disordered eating and potentially bad body image as well, I completely understand if you have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, you're wondering what is best for you at this point, where can you go from here, as well as hopefully some renewed hope and curiosity that maybe things can actually get better. Depending on what it is that you need, I've created different options of where you can go next and different resources that can help. So if you're here because you have heard me talk about a normal and healthy relationship with food and you think that sounds really nice, but what does that even mean? I need some clarity on that. There's an option for you. If you're here because you know what a healthy relationship with food is, and now you're wondering, but is that right for me? Is going down that path right for me? Is it possible for me? If you have questions or concerns about that, then there's an option for you. If you're here because you know what a healthy relationship with food is, you know it's what you want and you want to go down that path, but you're wondering, how do people actually do that? What does that look like, that journey? Then there's an option for that as well. Or if you're here because you're interested in exploring the option of working together on your journey to a great relationship with food and you're wondering what that looks like and if that's right for you, then there's also an option where you can book in for an introductory call where we can provide some clarity for you on that there. So depending on where you're at, I invite you to now head to the place that makes the most sense for you, and I will be over there to offer clarity and support and help. Hi, lovely. This video is for you if you've been struggling with thinking about food a lot, binge eating, feeling out of control with food, emotional eating, yo-yo dieting, yo-yoing weight, and you know that you can't continue in the way that you are. You've got enough evidence behind you now to know that things may not just improve on their own with what it is that you've been doing, but it's confusing. And you would have seen people have a healthy relationship with food and wondered, how are they doing this? They don't track anything, they don't monitor anything, and they just kind of eat naturally in balance, intuitively all of the time, and it seems really bizarre. Let's begin with what a healthy relationship with food isn't, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, and I think that's because it can seem like a very abstract concept. What a healthy relationship with food isn't is the eat everything in moderation diet. It's not balanced eating. It's not copying what someone else with food freedom has, or eats rather. It's not enforcing willpower on a regular basis to maintain balance and flexibility around food. And it's not the intuitive eating diet. And what I mean when I say it's not the intuitive eating diet is it's very common for people to take the principles of intuitive eating, like, oh, it's a good idea to kind of eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, and turn them into new rules from which to enforce. And if intuitive eating isn't coming naturally to someone, then I would argue that they are on the intuitive eating diet. I hope that makes sense. A healthy relationship with food also isn't the hunger fullness diet, by the way. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and stick to it with force and willpower. Okay, now I'm going to take you through how I define a healthy relationship with food. And this is after years of experience of trying to define it and make it tangible, okay? And fair warning, if you've been struggling in your relationship with food for quite some time and feeling out of control, etc., then the following might seem like a fantasy to you or too good to be true. All right, that's really common, so fair warning, but I'll just lay out what it is and then we can take it from there. A healthy relationship with food to me means that someone's physical appetite is balanced and it's appropriate for their body's needs. Firstly, that they can hear the full range of their appetite cues and they can respond to hunger and satiety most of the time without using willpower. So you know when it's time to breathe in and out most of the day, you know that, but you're not consciously aware of it and it happens quite naturally. Same thing with, oh, I'm feeling a little bit hungry, oh, I'm becoming satiated, and so I'm eating and now I'm stopping eating and I'm moving on. That's what I mean without willpower. Next, that you can eat freely. So no heavy analysis, no monitoring, no tracking, no calorie counting. Eat freely without over or under eating in the big picture. Not meal to meal necessarily, because sometimes people with a healthy relationship with food, they aren't able to eat when they're hungry, or they eat a bit past satiety. But in the big picture, over weeks and months, eating freely without over or under eating. Next, that they can enjoy any foods that they want to enjoy without a fear of losing control. That there's little emotional eating happening. Again, it's my definition, it's my way of working with it. To me, if there's absolutely no emotional eating occurring whatsoever, then someone is only eating for optimum nutrition at all times and is deriving no pleasure or satisfaction from their food whatsoever. But you might have an intuitive sense of when it starts to cross over that line for you and it's becoming a little bit problematic and distressing. The next part is that you tend more towards nourishing food because you genuinely want it, not because you feel that you should eat it. Next, that you can trust yourself fully around food, to the point that not trusting yourself around food seems as ridiculous as not trusting yourself around your sunglasses, for instance. And it is that way for people with a healthy relationship with food. And lastly, that there is healthy control with food. So not the tight, in control, willpower enforced, better maintain this rigidity, otherwise there's chaos kind of control, and not out of control, checking out, zoning out, feeling chaotic, etc. Healthy control. So the ability for you to make decisions around food which align with what you want for yourself, and decisions coming from an easy place of self-care and peace, like, oh, I've got a craving for ice cream. And you would have seen people do this. I've got a craving for ice cream. What time's dinner going to be? Oh, 45 minutes. Okay. Well, actually, I think I'll wait then maybe until after dinner to have an ice cream if I still fancy one. You see, that easy decision. Or maybe I will have an ice cream. That easy decision from a place of self-care. Hi, lovely. You're here if you have understood what a healthy relationship with food is as far as I work with it and I think of it. And it sounds nice to you. It sounds like something that you want, but you're wondering if it is quite that simple, because it doesn't feel like it. And if going down this path towards that as a goal makes sense for you and is right for you. So that's what we're going to discuss. And what I'm going to start with is the primary concerns and questions that tend to come up at this point. So those are, what would happen to my weight if I went down this path towards this goal? Is it possible for me to have a healthy relationship with food? And is that dependent on anything? What if I'm not happy with where my body ends up as a result of gaining this relationship with food? And will life actually be better with this relationship with food? Because it means giving up certain things like dieting, restricting, and the highs of that, and also emotional eating and binge eating, and kind of that emotional roller coaster, which can be devastating, but it can also be very entertaining and can serve different roles. So will life even be better? And you'll also probably be wondering, how do people actually move from disordered eating to a great relationship with food? So I'm actually going to start with, is it possible for me to have a healthy relationship with food? And so I don't know you. We haven't met yet, most likely. But my take on this is that your relationship with food is the way that it is for a reason. And there's many different factors which are going into it right now to create this disordered eating, which again is such a high level term. And everything in it can be broken down into something very tangible. And I think one of the reasons why people don't think that it's possible for them is because they don't actually understand the specifics of what a healthy relationship with food actually means. And they don't understand how to get there. And they focus far too much on what they're eating rather than all the reasons why they don't have a healthy relationship with food in the first place. And what a lot of people do, in my experience, is they hear about a healthy relationship with food, maybe from me, and they understandably take all of their experiences with dieting or trying to control their food or trying to maintain balance with eating and not succeeding at that in their mind, because they were using willpower essentially and dealing with the surface stuff. But anyway, they take all of that experience of I can't be trusted, I'm a failure at this, and this is not going to work for me, here we go again. They take all of that into the goal of a healthy relationship with food when they think about it, because they think that was about food and that didn't work, and this looks like it's about food, so how on earth can that work? This happens quite regularly now because the intuitive eating movement has become a lot bigger, that I will speak with someone who says, I really don't think I can have a healthy relationship with food because, I've tried intuitive eating for a while and I still binge, I still feel like I'm thinking about food often, I still feel like I overeat. And then invariably what will happen when I ask them, okay, just walk me through your approach to intuitive eating, help me to understand. And then they'll say things like, okay, well, I was trying to only eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full, do that most of the time. And I was trying not to emotionally eat, and I was trying not to drink my calories, and I was trying to make balanced meals, and I was trying to eat enough, and trying to reduce sugar, etc. These are the kind of things that would come up, the word trying a lot. And so what's happened here, which is completely understandable, what's happened here is someone has heard about intuitive eating, it makes sense logically, makes sense on the tin, and then they take the intuitive eating principles almost, and they turn it into a new set of rules without meaning to. And then they try to enforce them. And that is not gaining a healthy relationship with food at all. Gaining a healthy relationship with food means looking at, okay, eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm satiated most of the time. That seems to be like part of a healthy relationship with food. Okay. I'm currently finding it difficult to do that naturally. So what needs to fundamentally change underneath that so that it comes naturally to me to eat when I'm hungry and stop eating when I'm satiated most of the time? Another example, okay, reducing emotional eating. Okay, that seems like it's part of a healthy relationship with food. That makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to recognize when I'm not hungry and I want to eat, and I'm really going to try to not do that. And maybe I'll call a friend or go for a walk instead, and I'll just try to not emotionally eat. But gaining a healthy relationship with food, the difference there is I recognize I want to eat often when I'm not physically hungry or I want to eat past satiety. That's interesting. I wonder what that's about. I wonder what is driving that. Then exploring what types of emotional eating that they're doing, what needs that it's serving, etc. And taking the necessary steps to address those emotions and those needs effectively in the right way so that the urge to emotionally eat does not come up nearly as much, because some is normal and healthy. So there is the key difference and the missing link, and why gaining a healthy relationship with food is nothing like any of the dieting or willpower plans or anything like that, and why gaining a healthy relationship with food actually has very little to do with any discussions about food whatsoever. And that's why I often say I help women gain a normal and healthy relationship with food without relying on rules, restrictions, or willpower. Not just because that's more pleasant to do it that way, but because it's fundamentally necessary. Gaining a healthy relationship with food that comes naturally to us is the point, and that people haven't actually done. And so when people come to me and they say, and I've worked with women who are in their 60s and 70s as well, and they come and they say, I really don't think I can have a healthy relationship with food because I've been trying all of my life. I've really been trying all of my life. And when we get into what it is that they've tried, it's things like keto, or I tried eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm full. I've tried fasting, I've tried this, I've tried that, all things surrounding trying to maintain control in one way or another when you break it all the way down. And I say to them, and I'll say the same thing to you, I say to them, this is good news, really, because essentially what you've been doing for a long time is saying, I really, really want to learn to drive. And then you've gone out and you've bought a bike and you've been pedaling away for hours and hours and hours, trying really, really hard, putting so much energy and effort into it. You've been trying so hard. And then you're like, oh, I'm not any closer to being able to drive a car. Okay, I'm going to go and get a scooter. Spending hours practicing scootering around. Like, oh, I'm not any closer to driving a car. It's like, well, of course you're not, because you haven't been focused on the things that you need to focus on to be able to drive a car. And it's the same with a healthy relationship with food. I imagine that you've actually got so much discipline and energy and focus, and it's just that it's been going into the wrong places, as it were. And imagine all of that when it's put into the right places, and the underlying reasons why each part of your relationship with food isn't particularly healthy are actually addressed so that it can come naturally to you. The next common concern that comes up of, even if I think that I'm capable of having a healthy relationship with food and moving towards that, what is going to happen to my weight? So I'm going to put it back to you and say, if you had that healthy relationship with food, which we outlined, so eating freely without over or under eating, can hear your hunger and satiety cues, you're not really emotionally eating, you're tending more towards nourishing food because you want it, you can trust yourself fully around food, you have healthy control with food, all of that stuff. But just as a thought experiment, if you woke up with that relationship with food, all of it, would you trust your body to take care of its own weight regulation, first and foremost? And if the answer to that is yes, then the next question is, okay, so I trust my body to do that, but what if I don't like I like to call it my natural healthy weight. So the weight and body that we have, that is in response to a healthy relationship with food, because they go hand in hand. To change outside of our natural healthy weight would mean by default, we no longer have a healthy relationship with food, if you see what I mean. So they go hand in hand. Next question is, what if I don't like my natural healthy weight, even if I want that relationship with food? And this is a big question, but I'll do my best. The honest answer is that in order to move down the path of gaining a healthy relationship with food, that path also involves improving body image. Because if you gained a healthy relationship with food and your body settled somewhere and you were really, really unhappy with it and it was impacting your life and your sense of confidence, etc., i.e. you still have bad body image, then it's not really going to be a likely outcome that you can maintain that healthy relationship with food. So they kind of go hand in hand. Moving towards a healthy relationship with food, in my experience, means also moving towards good body image. And when I say good body image, I think, and I've asked this on my YouTube channel, so I know that there's lots of different responses. I think it's important for me to define what I mean by that. So this is my definition of what good body image means, and it's the way that I work with it. Good body image means that my body does not determine anything that I think of myself, anything that I feel, anything that I do, anything that I wear, anything that I feel I deserve to have, and anything that I go after in life. And that might be different to your idea of good body image. Some people consider it to be, I like the way that I look. They're different things. My body does not impact my life and sense of self. Conversely, bad body image, I would define as the opposite. So my body determines absolutely everything that I think of myself, everything that I feel, everything that I do, everything that I wear, everything I feel I deserve to have, and everything that I go after in life. Those are kind of like the two extremes. I'm not sure anyone really falls on either absolute extreme. And so this is about choice. So my question to you is, that definition of good body image, is that also what you want? Is that also what you want? Really, really, really important question. And if you say yes, I don't know how, and I have concerns about that, but yes, that sounds really nice. I'd like a healthy relationship with food, to settle at my natural healthy weight, to be taking care of my health and fitness from a place of ease and pure passion and enjoyment. And I'd like to be free to live my life and feel confident and good on my terms. Not because of what the scale says, essentially. And if that's the case, then to me, those goals are congruent, and that's a really good thing, because then they're attainable. Do you see what I mean? Then the next question becomes, how do people do that? Hi, lovely. So you're here if you want a healthy relationship with food, a normal and healthy relationship with food. Even if you still have questions, Like, yes, that sounds great. Feel like I can do that, probably. That's what I want. The next question that you probably have is how? How do people do that? Now, I can only speak from my experience of working with people through that transition, shall we say. I also want to be respectful to the fact that that is a very, very big question. How do people do that? That kind of takes going through the entire process yourself to really understand fully how people do that, if that makes sense. Nevertheless, we can do our best to create an overview so that conceptually, hopefully it makes a lot of sense to you. So the first thing is the recognition that the relationship with food that you have, whether it's disordered and struggled or healthy, as it were, is the symptom, as it were, or the effect of other stuff. It's like, okay, eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're satiated most of the time. Okay. Well, we've got two options there. We could turn that into a rule. I'm going to eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm satiated 90% of the time, and I'm going to track it and I'm going to enforce that. Or we look at, well, why is that not coming naturally to me already? And what needs to change underneath that to allow for that to come naturally to me? The next part is the recognition that a healthy relationship with food that comes naturally to us cannot be born out of control, rules, restrictions, or willpower. And if we're doing that, then we've basically gone on to what I like to call the intuitive eating diet, or the healthy relationship with food diet. I think it's helpful to think of a healthy relationship with food, this seemingly abstract concept, like style. And I'm going to use the example of interior design style because I've just got a new apartment, looking around it now, and I got it completely empty, and I decided I want to do the interior design for this. I've never done that before, and I think I'd really enjoy it. And I very quickly found that I couldn't. It felt like I spent hours on Pinterest, as per everyone's advice, looking up rooms and design and style, and my style was consistent in what I was looking at. I knew what I wanted when I saw it, but then taking that and actually starting to choose pieces and colors and then bringing the room together so that my apartment looked like or had the same feel as these rooms on Pinterest, completely different thing. But I didn't know at that point why I was finding it so hard. I just thought, and I was joking to my friends, I don't have any style. So I called my brother and I asked for help. He's a designer. I said, help me please. I have no style. And bless him, he really tried to help. And I pretended that the phone call was more helpful than it was. And one of the things he said was, well, you know, a mix of modern and kind of rustic is nice, and there's some nice things on the wall. And I was thinking, yes, but I don't know what nice means. So saying that really doesn't help me at all. But then fortunately, I came across the concept of feng shui, which I knew about, but I actually started looking into it, and I was like, okay, spatial arrangement in the room. Okay. I took a few concepts of that. It was tangible, it was logical. I got that. And I moved things around according to these principles. And I was like, wow, this feels a lot better. And all of a sudden I felt a little bit excited about it. I was like, oh, I've learned something. I can develop style. I'm like an infant right now, but there are tangible things and concepts that I can learn bit by bit. Now, just like when I would look at someone like my brother who has interior design style and think, but how are you doing that? You might have looked at someone with a healthy relationship with food and been like, but how are you doing that? Just as someone can develop a sense of style, something which I didn't think was possible until recently, but just as someone can develop that bit by bit, someone can also develop a healthy relationship with food. But not by copying what someone else is doing. That doesn't work. Not by trying to just try really hard to just get it right. That's what I was doing with my apartment. Just trying really hard to get it right. Not by doing any of that, but by developing the necessary understandings and developing skills, mini skills, one bit at a time. And slowly this picture starts to form, and this overarching skill of styling or a healthy relationship with food can be formed. And I think of a healthy relationship with food as just one big skill made up of lots and lots of mini skills. And that is the way that I teach it. And so what I have seen so much of people talking to me about it is basically what I was doing when I was trying to make my apartment look nice. Is I was going over here and I was going over here. I'm like, maybe I'll get this bit of furniture. Oh, but then will it work with the wall? Like, what color would I get with that? And how do I get another piece of furniture that would look good with that one? And it just doesn't make too much sense. It's too much to think about all at once. How do people possibly ever do this? I must just not have any style. And I see the same thing with people with their relationships with food when they're really struggling with a disordered relationship with food. Is they'll go over here, they'll see a nutritionist over here, and then they'll try to water fast, and then they'll try to just stop emotionally eating, and then they might go to therapy over here, and they're kind of being pulled in all these different directions because they don't fundamentally understand what it is that they are trying to do. It's not tangible. They don't understand it. And so when people say, is it possible to improve your relationship with food? That to me seems just as not ridiculous, because I understand why it's being asked, but we'll use it just as ridiculous of a question as if someone were asking, like I was, can someone develop better style? And the thing is, a lot of what people, by the time they speak to me, have tried over the years, some of it was really helpful and kind of a part of having a healthy relationship with food. You know, I spoke to someone the other day who went to see a nutritionist to help them to kind of resettle their appetite cues and rebalance their appetite. And having a balanced appetite, you know, it's appropriate for our needs. Is that part of a healthy relationship with food? Well, yeah, that's really helpful. It's a part of it. But there comes in the importance of the awareness of the whole picture at large and seeing as I'm going to rebalance my appetite cues. That's really helpful, but it's not the whole picture. And I've got to do these other things as well. But what will often happen is someone might go to a nutritionist like that, they try to work on it and then say, oh, this hasn't helped at all. Scrap all of that entirely. Now I'm going to go to therapy. And they uncover some emotional ties to food and they start to address it, and that's really helpful. And they might think, okay, that's been kind of helpful, but I don't have a healthy relationship with food now that comes naturally to me. Maybe my appetite cues have got out of balance again, or if I have a craving, do I honor my craving? Do I not? How do I make decisions around food? That sense of healthy control isn't there. I'm clueless still. Oh, that didn't work. Let's bring in the next thing. So in summary, conceptually, how does someone develop a healthy relationship with food? And again, I can only speak from my experience, personal and professional experience. First comes the awareness of what a healthy relationship with food actually is. You've got to make that tangible. Even though it seems abstract, it's tangible. You've got to break it down then into the different categories and steps, in essence, of things that need to be addressed in order for a healthy relationship with food to come into fruition. And being aware of the bigger picture at large of all those things that need to be addressed, and then go into focusing on the one part at a time, like developing a balanced appetite, getting in touch with appetite cues, moving past emotional eating, building trust in self, and step by step, bringing all of this new understanding and new practice and new skills, bringing them all in together because they're all interconnected, just like with style. All of those elements of style need to come together for a room to look stylish to that person. Now that we've looked at that conceptually, which hopefully was helpful in and of itself, I understand that now you probably want it to be more specific. What are the actual areas that people address that come together to create a healthy relationship with food as a side effect, essentially? Hey, lovely, welcome. You are here if you would like to learn more about how to develop a healthy relationship with food and all that entails. So, what are the different areas that, in my experience, someone needs to address kind of in isolation, but also as a whole picture in order to move from binge eating, yo-yo dieting, food obsession, emotional eating, feeling out of control, to a normal and healthy relationship with food? And I'll summarize those for you. The first area is balancing the appetite, making sure that the physical appetite is balanced and appropriate for our body's needs. So a lot of people don't know this, but dieting, restricting, ignoring appetite cues on both ends of the spectrum can actually lead to the physical appetite becoming unbalanced. And I've heard so often, I feel so much hungrier than other people, or I can't hear my appetite cues. I don't know when I'm hungry. I don't know when I'm satiated. And actually, the disordered eating and dieting in itself can massively contribute to that. And of course, having a balanced appetite, which is appropriate for your body's needs, is a part of a healthy relationship with food. So learning how to do that is one part. The second part is some appetite awareness training, if you like. So that's getting in touch with hunger and satiety cues and appetite cues. The appetite might be balanced from the first part, but that doesn't mean an awful lot if you can't hear your appetite cues, as it were. And again, there can be a lot of confusion around this. Might be true for you, may not be, but there can be a lot of confusion around this. Am I hungry enough to eat yet? Am I not hungry enough to eat? Should I stop eating? Am I satiated enough, etc.? What does satiety even feel like? All of these kinds of things. And so being in touch with appetite cues doesn't give us a healthy relationship with food in isolation, but it's an important part. Hard to have one without hearing appetite cues. The third part is understanding your psychology around food, and that can seem like a daunting area. I'll give you an example of what I mean. So someone that is binge eating may be completely unaware that the urge to binge is pretty much a creation of their own. They're creating the urge to binge typically without even realizing it. And one small example of this is, and that's through thoughts. One small example of this is, have you ever planned a diet for the next day, thought, I'm going to be really good and kind of really on track and everything's going to be amazing. I'm going to follow this plan perfectly and I'm going to lose this amount of weight starting from tomorrow. And that very idea of I'm going to begin tomorrow and be almost perfect on my plan was the very instigator of you having a binge that evening. You might not have been aware of it happening, but it's very, very common. And so there, a thought of I'm going to go onto a diet, should we say, tomorrow, instigated or at least contributed to the urge to binge that otherwise wouldn't have been there. That's one small example. Then there's other things like scarcity mindset, wanting what we can't have, creating the urge to binge and unnecessary cravings and urges. Then there's things like checking out when a binge starts to occur, and checking out contributes to the binge unfolding. There's a lot that we do in our thinking that creates and drives the urge to binge, and unnecessary thoughts and preoccupation around food. And the really ironic thing is that when people are thinking certain things or having certain perspectives around food that are contributing to the urge to binge, they are actually having those thoughts and taking those perspectives because they believe that they are helpful. Hence, they are being done intentionally. And that's really, really good news, because if they're being done intentionally and for a positive purpose, it means that once they are identified, then you can stop doing them basically and do something more helpful. Developing the mindset of someone with a healthy relationship with food, which again isn't as daunting or unrealistic as it can sound on the tin. It's actually really tangible. That's really crucial to actually genuinely having a healthy relationship with food. So we have to take into account psychology. The next part is moving past emotional eating. And this I can kind of break up to summarize into understanding and identifying what types of emotional eating that you do. What do you use food for? Emotionally, to meet needs or to meet emotions? Does food mean certain things to you? And the next part then is actually tending to those needs and getting those needs met and working through emotions and responding to emotions in really healthy and productive and self-developmental and resilient ways, sufficiently and effectively enough that the urge to use food emotionally in those ways goes down on its own. A lot of people make a mistake when it comes to emotional eating of just trying to not emotionally eat and just try to stop it using that force and willpower which we've spoken about. But with a healthy relationship with food, we would consider that those urges to use food in unhelpful ways aren't there in the first place. And so we're looking at what can we do to bring the urges down, which is getting those needs and emotions met in more fulfilling and appropriate ways. The next area is body image, improving body image. So if at the moment a lot of what you think of yourself or feel or do or wear or feel that you deserve to have is dependent on your body shape or size, then that's going to need to be addressed, in my opinion and experience, because if it's not, and there's a lot riding on what body weight or shape you have, then how could you not go in and start to re-control food? Even if you developed a healthy relationship with food, how could you maintain a healthy relationship with food if, say, your confidence or your sense of style or your feeling of being worthy or lovable or having fun in life is dependent on your body. And it's absolutely possible, and something which I fully support, to have a healthy relationship with food that comes naturally to us and care about health and fitness from a place of self-care and passion and enjoyment, and have a good body image and feel good about ourselves and be out there thriving in our lives and feel confident regardless of what exactly our body shape is doing at that particular time. And improving the relationship with food and improving body image, these two invariably, they go hand in hand. It's like you want both of them or neither of them for the vast majority of us. Another area which is crucial for developing a healthy relationship with food, which people don't often think about, is identity, essentially. Who are you when you're not thinking about food all the time, you're not preoccupied with food all the time, your energy and attention isn't going there, and it's also not going on your body and what it looks like, and your sense of self as well is not dependent on your body weight or shape. I never used to do any work with identity at my own peril when I was working with clients a few years ago, and I very quickly learned that these questions really need to be asked. And that's for two reasons. The first is that I would work with clients to a healthy relationship with food and good body image, and then they would come back, two of them came back with one specific problem, and that was, I don't know who I am without my disordered eating and bad body image taking up all of my time and attention, essentially. And the second reason is that if we are adding these things in along the journey to our sense of self, our interests, where our attention goes, what we want to focus on, and these things are being added in, then it actually does a wonderful job of crowding out the thoughts around food and weight themselves, which obviously is really helpful for gaining a healthy relationship with food and good body image. So it all kind of works in tandem. Another area is confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, self-love. You can kind of group those together, as it were. And that's a really important part of gaining a healthy relationship with food, because what is a healthy relationship with food if not a continuous act of self-care, essentially? If you were only able to make decisions that were self-caring and everything else was impossible, then in my opinion, you would essentially immediately then have a healthy relationship with food, because you'd be tending to emotions and tending to needs in self-caring ways. You would be naturally finding this balance of flexibility and enjoyment in food, but nourishing your body. And I'm not sure what a healthy relationship with food without self-love grown would even look like, or if that would even be possible. That to me, again, would sound like the healthy relationship with food diet. I'm just enforcing all of these rules, new rules on myself out of a place of judgment and guilt and shaming, etc. And confidence and self-worth, these are really important because firstly for body image, it's expanding out domains of self-worth so that not all of it is riding, or not so much of it is riding on body weight and shape. That hopefully is intuitive to you. But also I work with so many people in this area where a large part of their troubles with food and body image is coming from the desperate need essentially of external validation, because they don't have that internal sense of confidence and stability and internal validation. And so they need it from the outside. Another important area is developing self-trust, which is not the same thing as being really disciplined or perfectionistic. How can we develop and maintain a healthy relationship with food which comes naturally to us if we don't trust ourselves? And you might argue, how can I develop trust with myself? What would that even look like when I'm constantly doing things that I don't want to be doing, that I think are unhelpful or not in line with a healthy relationship with food? And the short answer that I have for that is you don't have to be perfect in order to build trust with yourself. What you can do is you can reflect on the things that don't go according to plan in a compassionate way, and you can continuously learn from these things so that you are favoring progress, a sense of progress over perfection. That's the short answer. But self-trust, really important part of a healthy relationship with food. In my experience, another really important area when developing a healthy relationship with food is assertiveness training. Applicable more to some rather than others, but assertiveness is essentially the recognition of our own wants and needs and feelings and seeing them as valid and as equal to other people's, and then being able to assert them in a polite, non-aggressive and non-passive way. So essentially it's the path to being able to tend to our needs and get our needs met. And that is so important for building confidence, for building sense of self-worth, and also for bringing down the urge to emotionally eat, which hopefully will make sense to you. And here you start to see how these things link in with each other. And that's the point that I keep making. In isolation, all of these different areas, do they develop a healthy relationship with food? No, but together with those links between them, yes, absolutely. Another important area in my experience is developing the ability to recognize our own beauty in all the different facets of what that means. For some of us, we have a very narrow range of what we consider to be beautiful. We also make the assumption that everyone else considers it in the same way. We also value physical attractiveness very, very highly to our disservice, robbing ourselves of the ability to recognize and appreciate our own beauty in all the different ways that that means. That's not going to be helpful for our confidence, our sense of self, our identity, or body image, and therefore it's not going to be helpful for our relationship with food. And the last area, which I'll leave you with, there are a few others, but I'll leave it here. The last area of developing a healthy relationship with food, in my experience, is addressing perfectionism or black and white thinking, and developing instead the ability to be flexible, again, developing more of a sense of self-worth and self-value and self-appreciation, and developing self-efficacy. Black and white thinking or reliance on rules or rigidity or perfectionism, as many of my clients will attest. I've got a few in my mind at the moment who've just moved past perfectionism and black and white thinking. Those things are really hard to keep in place and develop a healthy relationship with food at the same time, because what is a healthy relationship with food if not lots of flexibility in combination with self-care? And what is binge eating and going off the rails if not a really good depiction of black and white thinking? That pendulum swinging, I'm either in control or I'm out of control. So there are some of the main areas of developing a healthy relationship with food, the kind of individual parts that sort of come together and work in combination to develop this overarching skill, if you like, of a healthy relationship with food. Now, if you're looking to develop a normal and healthy relationship with food and form your own path and carve your own path there, and you're not looking for outside help or step-by-step guidance, then I've put together a reading list of books that either I have read or clients have read that have been helpful for understanding these different areas. And you can read through them and you can understand how it relates to your relationship with food, and you can sort of form your own path and carve from there. So I hope that that will be helpful. I don't have a full reading list of books that I have read to develop a healthy relationship with food. I went to school essentially to learn how to develop a healthy relationship with food, but I've done my best with this reading list, and I hope that it's helpful on your journey. Now, if you are interested in our help or having step-by-step guidance, then we work with clients all the way from disordered eating, binge eating, yo-yo dieting, food obsession, emotional eating, bad body image, to a normal and healthy relationship with food. And we cover all the bases and do so in a learn, practice, skill build, move on, learn, practice, skill build, move on fashion. If that's an option that you want to explore, then we begin with an introductory call to just assess that the work that we do is suitable for you. Then you'll have the option to have a complimentary consultation with me, which will be up to a couple of hours. And that's where we get everything out on the table: your relationship with food, where you're getting stuck, what your needs are, what your goals are, what questions and concerns you have about the journey itself and about the work that we do. And if it's suitable, we'll look at what working together throughout your entire journey would look like for you. And there's no obligation at all on either side with this introductory call or the consultation. We'd only move forward with working together if that's what we have all mutually decided is the most beneficial thing to do and it's a really good fit. So if it's an option that you want to explore, then I recommend just getting started with an introductory call, and then we can take it from there.